May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Would you please be seated? Good, Alan, shutting the back doors. Bert, you're an old Navy man. You know the value of sonar. I like to ping off the back wall and see if I can hear it. I want to talk to you this morning about exciting stuff. The power of Christ, that Jesus and God is real. And we're going to do it through the story of Mary wiping Jesus' feet with her hair. Then, as now, that was pretty gross. So I want to talk to you about what's going on. Is Mary some neurotic who's having a breakdown? Is this some arcane Jewish custom like Eskimos rubbing noses? No, this is Mary once again leading the way for the disciples and the apostles and for the church to understand that in the person of Jesus Christ, everything can be found. I want to talk to you today about Mary. Mary of Bethany, Mary Magdalene, the unknown sinning woman in Luke's Gospel, and how they're all wrapped together, but they really are different people. When I prepared for this sermon, I'm reading through the passages and I'm studying the Bible, and as you probably know, my brain can go down rabbit holes faster than anything else. So I'm reading all about Mary Magdalene and Mary of Bethany, and I'm transformed in my memory back to the best years of my life. I was 21 years old. I had just graduated from college. I was engaged to be married to my wife, Susan, and I had a job in New York City. Susan still had some more college to go, so I was going to go by myself. And I was so excited. The world was mine. It's 1983. God's in heaven. Ronald Reagan's in the White House. It doesn't get much better. Except if you're working and living in Lower Manhattan as a little young boy. Well, my mother had a few words to say about that, after not over my dead body. Finally, she agreed to let me go, but she wanted to help me find a place to live. Well, I was still in that phase of life where, Mommy and Daddy can make everything perfect if they only really wanted to. And we looked at places to live, and I found that my salary didn't quite cover that apartment on the east side, or the west side, or the Bowery, or any place. This is before Brooklyn was fashionable. This was when Brooklyn was not the place you wanted to be. And the places you did want to be in Brooklyn, you couldn't live there. And I was so upset, but Mommy came to the rescue, and she called some friends. And in exchange for doing yard work, I became the janitor at the convent of St. John the Baptist in Mendham, New Jersey. The convent of St. John the Baptist was an Episcopal boarding school for bad girls. It was run by an order of nuns. A beautiful estate. Mendham is sort of out there, way past Morristown, just out there. And it was in that part of New Jersey where Jackie Onassis had an estate, and Mike Tyson at that time had an estate out there. Huge rolling fields of fake gentleman farms, and a huge convent with very, very wealthy girls who had done very, very bad things. And I was allowed to live there for free. Now, my mother thought that was great because the nuns would look after me. Susan, on the other hand, thought this was a mistake. But my job, I would get up at 5:30. And I kid you not, I get up at 5:30 because the nuns would have their first mass at 6 o'clock. And I had to be there to be, an altar boy with the priest. And then I'd catch the Erie and Lackawanna train into Manhattan, to Hoboken. And this was the day when you could either take the PATH train under the river or the ferry across from Hoboken to Lower Manhattan. Oh, life is wonderful when you're 21, isn't it? But this convent above the altar had this huge, huge painting reformed prostitute, the sinner, with everything hanging out. One of these really sort of over-the-top Italian paintings. And so at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm sort of sitting there, trying to keep awake. The nuns are mumbling. I'm looking solemn, holding a candle or whatever I was doing, staring at a half-naked woman above me. Now, the little girls I never saw them because I was at work in Manhattan, and I get home late at night, and then I cut the grass on Saturday. Never saw anybody, because Susan had nothing to worry about. But Mary Magdalene of that convent was the model of, girls, you are bad, but look at Mary Magdalene. She can be good too. And then you can go to places like Italy or England or Spain, and they have these Magdalenes, houses for fallen women, houses for women who've become pregnant while unmarried. And over the course of the century, Mary Magdalene was the go-to person for bad girls. And all throughout Western art, you have this picture, this image of Mary Magdalene, and she was rolled into Mary of Bethany. There was a church council at the University of Paris in 1515, which declared it a heresy that no Catholic can believe to say that Mary of Bethany was not Mary Magdalene. They're all the same Mary. And one of the fights of the Reformation, many fights, were people like John Calvin saying, no, this Mary and that Mary and the other Marys are all different Marys. So I want to talk to you about Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, the unnamed sinning woman. And this is sort of my big feminist sermon. Ladies, burn your bras. I am woman, hear me roar. Because I want to talk to you about the place of women in the Bible, which is not necessarily the place of women in the church. You see the difference? We need not to listen exclusively to tradition to say, well, because we've always done it this way, this is how we're going to do it. But rather look at the plain words of the Bible and understand what is being given to us to hear. Now, what do we know about Mary? What do we know about any of this? How do all these things get rolled together? Well, we are told in Luke's Gospel in chapter 7 that Jesus was having dinner with some Pharisees, and that a woman of the town, who was a sinner, heard about this and came and crashed the party. Sorry, Randy. Back up. Crashed the party. And she was there, and she was so upset, and she had brought with her this valuable perfume, and she poured it on Jesus' feet, and took her hair and wiped it. And the Pharisees going, ew, Jesus, you're being touched by ew, a woman, you're using her hair to wipe your feet. Ew, this is not right. Jesus, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd. The next chapter, chapter 8, begins where a woman named Mary Magdalene, Mary of Magdala, which is a town on the Sea of Galilee, is introduced. It says, Jesus was traveling with his disciples and some women who included Mary Magdalene, the wife of the steward of Herod, and other women. These women traveled with the disciples, sat with the disciples, learned with the disciples, and they were wealthy, and out of their substance, they supported the ministry of Jesus. So let's step back. What are we hearing right now? There are emancipated women amongst the disciples. Women who are not there because daddy's with them, or their brother's with them, or their husbands are with them. These are women who, in their own right as people, are part of Jesus' community. This is where Mary Magdalene is introduced. Meanwhile, we've got another Mary. By the way, Mary is the most common Jewish girl's name at this time. Because we've got several Marys. Mary, the mother of Jesus, and so on and so forth. One of them was Mary, who had a sister named Martha. We've already had Jesus has raised their brother Lazarus from the dead. And now Jesus and his disciples have come to the home of Mary, of Bethany, and Martha, and Lazarus for a meal. On the cover of your bulletin, you see a medieval French picture. And it really, for my purposes, tells a wonderful story. Lazarus and Martha are standing watching their sister make an ass out of herself. Because Mary is on her knees with Jesus eating, washing his feet, and she's going to wipe them with her hair. Now, is this woman a nut job? She's some hysterical person. The answer is no. What she is doing is acknowledging, recognizing that in this person, in this man, is God amongst us. Mary of Bethany is one of the first, if the not the first, to recognize in Jesus that this is God. Martha and Lazarus was dead and he's been raised to life. Martha was there too. But it's Mary who basically takes this point. The whole point of life is to honor and worship and glorify God. And he's sitting here in our dining room. And I need to honor and glorify him with my whole being and substance. Because God is here. Is she hysterical? Is she a nutcase? No. She's a forerunner to what we who believe in Jesus know to be true. That Jesus is the aim, the end, the focus, the point of everything. The Bible continues, who is the first person? Or one of the first people, depending upon the gospel, to find the empty tomb? Mary Magdalene. She goes and tells the disciples, and Peter and the beloved disciple, whom we assume is John, and others, run back to the temple, and Mary has her heels on, so she's not as fast. So the boys run there, and they look around, there's nobody there. Mary, wait for me, wait for me. It's like her younger sister's running after you. She's finally taken off her shoes and is going out. Meanwhile, the boys have run back home. And who is the first person to whom the risen Christ appears? Mary Magdalene. That is why the Orthodox Church calls Mary Magdalene the apostle to the apostles. Now, over the course of the centuries, as people lost the ability to read the Bible and the desire to make figures or symbols out of these things, the church began to sort of compress things, such that the person of Mary Magdalene and Mary of Bethany and this unnamed sinner who came to the Pharisees' dinner were all wrapped into one person, such that it was a heresy in 1515 to say that they were different people. In fact, it wasn't until 1969 that the Catholic Church separated the feast day of Mary of Bethany, Mary Magdalene, and the unnamed woman. They each got their own. So one of the fights in the Reformation 500 years ago was solved in 1969. Who knew? But what is special and important about this act of Mary of Bethany, in Luke's Gospel, the sinning woman? Well, we never know that she's a prostitute. That was sort of tacked on. She could have just failed to pay her taxes on time. There are lots of ways you can sin and not be a prostitute. But the church, for whatever reasons, found it convenient to have somebody stand as a symbol for a fallen woman to bear the example of someone who was bad and is now good. Hence, the subject of countless schools for bad girls and reformatories. You can be like Mary Magdalene too. Even though Mary Magdalene never sinned. Never is called a sinner, is never called a prostitute. Nobody's called a prostitute. All this is wrapped together. Part of our work as believing Christians is to examine the Bible for ourselves and tease it apart. Each of us are in different places in our lives, each of us deal with different theories, but each of us are called to read this book for ourselves and understand what is going on here. Who are these women? Why are these women given these favored positions? Why are they, not the disciples, the ones who understand? Why are they, not the disciples, the ones who are given that grace-given place? I don't know the answer to that. But some portions of our tradition would say that these women need to sit down, be quiet, and just, shut up and let me talk. If it's me, yes, that's right. But we cannot be bound by the dead hand of the past when we're given a living book, which are the Gospels of Jesus Christ. You need to read and discern and study for yourself. When I was a young priest, as a young man, I never went to school with girls till I went to college. I had no sisters. Basically, girls were a foreign species to me. And when I started the ordination process as a young man in my 20s, I was thoroughly convinced that the way we had always done it was the right way. Because that's the way we've always done it. And we don't want any girls in the club, thank you very much. Now, there are different arguments on the issue of women's ordination. One is what I would call the Catholic, where the priest is the image of Christ at the altar. Now, I don't particularly worry about that, because guess what? I'm Catholic. For me, if we were going to push me, I would say it's not the image of God, it's the image of the church. There's up there standing in the place of the church. It's not standing in the place of God. But again, that's sort of theological shuffling of cards. But for me, it's what the Bible is telling us and what I understand. And for me, I don't want to say maturation, but my deepening of my understanding of what God's Word is telling me comes from my own study of the Bible and my life experiences of testing this. Sure, there are plenty of rotten women bishops and priests. Guess what? There are a lot more rotten men bishops and priests. Individuals are not the mark. It's what Christ's own Word tells us. And it's the same issue we have here with Mary of Bethany. How are you going to behave in the presence of the living God? Are you going to stand back to the side like Martha and Lazarus? Thank you, Jesus, for raising me from the dead and revealing that you are God. But, good manners requires us to be rather formal and distant and stand back. Or are you going to be like Mary of Bethany and be all in and make a public statement in front of your friends, in front of your family, in front of the world? You're going to make a fool out of yourself deliberately. That this is God. Coming up on the 20th anniversary of an event that has profoundly changed our country. Now it's been rewritten time and time and time again, but the same general outline of facts is still holding. On April 20th, 1999, two boys walked into their high school in Columbine, Colorado, and began to shoot. This is the first of my knowledge of what we've now had the occasional high school shooting. Was it 2 years ago we had the one down in Broward County? And I hate to say we live in a world where it's no longer shocking. It's sad, but it's not shocking. But when Columbine occurred, it was deeply shocking. And one of the stories that arose out of the Columbine shooting was the case of Casey Bernal. Casey was one of the little girls, high school girls, in the art class when one of the killers walked in. And he proceeded to shoot his guns, and everybody hid under the table, and he spoke as he was reloading, and he asked this little girl, "Are you a Christian?" And she said yes, and so he killed her. This is the Mary of Bethany moment. This is the moment. Now you and I pray never going to be put in that position. We have brothers and sisters in Christ right now in Sudan and Nigeria and Pakistan and other places in the world where a public profession of the Christian faith will lead to your death, will lead to your persecution. Here it's just mildly socially uncomfortable. Oh, well, we may not want you to come to our party then because you'll just be a drag, a dead weight, not going to be any fun. How are you going to live your life? How are you going to be a Martha and a Lazarus, or are you going to be a Mary? Making your life conform to the rules of society and cultural, and still acknowledging God, but doing it in sort of a very reserved, polite, episcopal way. Not making too much of it. Or are you going to be all in? Like Mary Bethany, like Casey Bernal, like the martyrs of the faith throughout history, the martyrs right now in China today. The largest Protestant church in Beijing and Peking was closed this week, and all its ministers arrested, including the families. And so there's a 4-year-old child in prison today because his father's a Christian pastor. His crime, the Chinese government, he had the 10 Commandments on the walls. One of them says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Well, the head of the Communist Party says, well, that's not something the Chinese Communist Party can agree with. If you are not putting the party first, putting God first, then you're an enemy of the party. And you're a traitor. Imagine if that were the life you would lead. Would you be a Martha and a Lazarus? A quiet believer? A happy believer? A polite believer? Or would you be a Mary? Or would you be a Casey? Friends, the choice is yours. How do you live your life as a Christian in this world? I'm arguing. I'm pleading. Don't be lukewarm. Don't do it halfway. Don't just do it because everybody else is doing it. Do it because you believe in the person of Jesus Christ. His work and His word, you will find eternal life. If that is your focus, then the principalities and powers and thrones and dominions, the things that matter in this world, becomes of nothing. Because you have put your whole faith in Jesus Christ. That's what matters. That's what Mary and Bethany has done. Then, as now, wiping somebody's feet with your hair is not a normal behavior. It's not some arcane culture. It's not some way of just doing things that they happen to do that. It was a statement of utter and complete devotion. That I am so fully involved and wrapped, and my life is so profoundly centered around this person that I will do whatever I can do to worship Jesus Christ. And folks, that's what we are called to do as believing Christians. Not to be lukewarm, not to be half-hearted. Hear me right. I'm not saying you've got to do what the church says, or do what the priest says. Even this priest. You do what your conscience tells you after you have submitted it to the test of God's Word, the Bible. We are on a journey together. We are on a work of building the kingdom of God. Not so that when we die we go to heaven. We know that's going to happen anyway. We are involved in the work of building God's kingdom today. One person at a time. You don't have to be murdered by a gunman. You don't have to wipe your hair on somebody's feet. You have to live a life, though. If you and a little old lady get to that same parking spot in public simultaneously, let her have it. That's a major sacrifice. Because there's never a place to park. Try this afternoon and you'll see. Little, small, daily, constant acts of Christian kindness and humility and mercy and love. You don't start out, you very rarely start out with martyrdom. You start with giving up a parking space. You start by being polite to the checkout girl. You start by being a person whose whole life is shaped by the power and love of Jesus Christ. And you take that into the world around you. We're studying in our Bible study a book by N.T. Wright called The Day the Revolution Began. Now, Wright is no airy-fairy, hippy-dippy Christian communist type. What he's talking about, the revolution, is that when Jesus died and took upon himself death, he changed everything, and the world has changed. Wright's argument is that we as Christians need to be part of that revolution of changing this world in anticipation where we're going. Jesus taught us in our prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Now what does that last passage mean? On earth as it is in heaven. We are praying that God's will on earth be conformed to his perfection in heaven above. That's a tough